There's this really simple, common sense rule we all live by. You can't sell something that you don't actually own. Seems pretty obvious, right? But what happens when that rule gets broken? Well, in the world of law, this simple idea gets really complicated really fast, and it can leave a completely honest buyer in a seriously tough spot.
So picture this. You're scrolling online and you find the perfect guitar. It's a great deal, you click buy, it shows up, and it's everything you hoped for. But then, a week later, you get a message. Someone is claiming that the guitar was actually stolen from them, and they have the police report to prove it. The seller, of course, has completely disappeared. So, who legally gets to keep the guitar? You, the innocent person who paid good money for it, or the original owner who is the victim of a theft? That's the exact puzzle we're going to solve today. To figure out who gets that guitar, we have to start with a legal principle that's basically the foundation for almost every single sale you've ever been a part of. It's a rule that's been the bedrock of business law for centuries. People call it the golden rule of sales.
It all boils down to this old Latin phrase, nemo dat quod non habet. All it means is no one can give what they do not have. When we're talking about sales, it means you can't transfer a better legal title or ownership than the one you've got. At its heart, it's the law's way of protecting the original property owners.
And this isn't just some dusty old saying either. It is a hard and fast rule written right into our laws today. The Sale of Goods Act says it right there in black and white. The buyer gets no better title than the seller had. So let's be blunt. If a thief sells you stolen goods, their title is worth nothing, which means the title you get from them is also worth nothing. Legally speaking, you never actually owned it.
So, when this rule gets broken, it creates what lawyers call a triangle of conflict. It's a real mess, with 3 different parties stuck in the middle, and 2 of them are completely innocent.
Okay, let's look at the tough reality for everyone in this triangle. First, you've got the original owner. They are the true owner, and they have every legal right to get their property back. Then, in the middle, you have the sketchy seller, who can get sued by everybody and even face criminal charges. And then, there's the innocent buyer, you. Even though you did everything right and bought it in good faith, the Nemo Dot rule says you have to give the item back. Your only real option is to try to find and sue the seller to get your money back, and well, good luck with that.
So it seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? The original owner is always protected. They always win. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? Because the law also realized that this rule, if it was absolute, could be incredibly unfair to honest buyers and could actually bring business to a grinding halt. And to fix that potential unfairness, the law actually created some very specific exceptions to this golden rule. You could think of them as legal loopholes, and they're designed specifically to protect an innocent buyer in certain situations. So let's look at the surprising ways that you, the buyer, can actually win this fight.
Just think about this for a second. What if the original owner's own actions made it seem like the sale was totally legitimate? Should they still get to come back later and claim the item? Well, the law says, maybe not.
This brings us to the first huge exception. It's a legal concept called estoppel. Now, it's a bit of a weird legal term, but the idea is actually pretty simple. If the real owner says or does something that leads a reasonable person to believe the seller has the authority to sell, then that owner is estopped or legally blocked from changing their story later. They can't have it both ways.
Here is a perfect example. Let's say your friend is showing off your watch to someone and then offers to sell it to them. You're standing right there. You see the whole thing, and you don't say a word. The person buys the watch, thinking your friend had the right to sell it because, hey, you were there and didn't object. In that case, the principle of estoppel could kick in, and a court might rule that you've lost your right to get that watch back. Your silence spoke for it.
And there are other big exceptions too, all designed to keep commerce flowing smoothly. Take a mercantile agent. If you give your car to a professional dealer just to get it valued, but they turn around and sell it, the innocent person who bought it in good faith from that dealer is usually protected. Then there's seller in possession. A store sells you a laptop, you pay, but before you can pick it up, they accidentally sell that exact same laptop to another customer who walks out of it. That second buyer likely gets to keep it. And the flip side is buyer in possession. Someone buys a couch on a payment plan, so they have the couch, but don't legally own it yet, and then sells it to someone else. That third person, if they bought it innocently, is often protected. See the pattern? The law is constantly trying to balance the rights of the original owner with the need for buyers to feel confident when they're spending their money.
All of these tricky situations really hinge on one massive distinction: the difference between legally owning something and just physically possessing it.
And this brings up another huge question. Who's on the hook if the goods get lost or wrecked before a sale is totally complete? The answer is probably not what you think.
Let's unpack this with a classic old case from the law books. So you have a seller who ships a huge load of fish, 190 boxes, on a train. He's already agreed to sell 20 of those boxes to a buyer, so he tells the railway staff to separate those 20 boxes out for that buyer once the train arrives at the station.
But then, disaster. The train gets delayed for a long time, and the entire shipment, all 190 boxes of fish, spoils before anyone even has a chance to separate the buyer's 20 boxes. So who takes the financial hit here? The seller, who technically still had all the fish, or the buyer, who had a deal to purchase it? The court's answer was crystal clear. The seller takes the loss. The logic was this. Until those specific 20 boxes were actually identified and set aside for the buyer, a process the law calls ascertainment, the legal ownership had not officially transferred. And the general rule here is really simple. Risk follows ownership. If you don't legally own it yet, the risk is an on.
This whole case just perfectly lays out the key difference. Ownership is the legal title. It's your actual right to the property. Possession is just physical control. Think about it this way. You can own a car that's sitting in the repair shop. You have ownership, but the mechanic has possession. The law sees those as two very different things. And like we saw with the fish, it's ownership that almost always decides who has to bear the risk.
All right, so after diving into all these legal twists and turns and surprising exceptions, what does this all mean for you in the real world? What are the practical takeaways? Let's break it down.
Okay, let's boil this all down. First, the golden rule, nemo dot, is still the default. You can't sell what you don't own. For you as a buyer, that means there's always an underlying risk. You could lose the item and your money if the seller was dodgy. However, never forget those crucial exceptions, like estoppel, where the law actually steps in to protect the innocent buyer. And finally, always remember this. The risk of something getting lost or damaged is almost always tied to who has legal ownership, not just who's physically holding it.
So the next time you're about to jump on an amazing deal that maybe seems just a little too good to be true, you have to ask yourself a new question. Are you just thinking about the price you're about to pay? Are you thinking about the title you're about to get? Because as we've just seen, one of those is way, way more important than the other.